this is where I landed my first job, right in the middle of Singapore's shopping district. I felt really bougie just by association, but I did not have the bougie paycheck to go along with it. My first job fresh out of university was digital marketing. I didn't study digital marketing in school, so everything I learned at work. And I'm so grateful for the people who taught me everything that I needed to succeed at work. And all of that began at Shaw Centre, this odd little office in the middle of the shopping district. At that time, I didn't realize, but I was starting to feel more and more unhappy and more depressed at work. I couldn't really understand why I was going through all of those emotions. It just didn't really make sense to me because I had amazing colleagues and a really wonderful group of people around me. After much thinking and reflection, I think that at that time I was striving for validation and acceptance at work because I didn't feel accepted at home, and I was just sort of patching the hole inside of me with something else. I entered into this unhealthy cycle of people pleasing, bending over backwards to meet people's needs, and just putting on a huge facade to fit in with people at work. And that eventually just got me really depressed, really upset with my life. I didn't know what I was thinking back then. I didn't even have the words to describe what I was feeling, so I did what every rational human being would do in that situation. I rage quit.
I'm getting lost because Orchard is literally a maze, but Tong Building is our next stop, and that is exit 1, and I'm trying my best to find exit 1. Oh my god! Alright, here it is.
After rage quitting, I found another digital marketing job, and it actually should have raised some red flags in me because I was the only person in the digital marketing department replacing somebody who was about to leave. But I was too busy rage quitting to notice any red flags. There were many problems going into my second job, starting first with that I was the youngest person in the office, so I felt very isolated, and also I was the sole contributor of my department, which again felt really strange. It was really challenging for me to relate to the other adults in the office and to navigate the politics of people and just feel confident about the expectations that were placed on me, which was pretty high given that I was in digital marketing. I just was not equipped with the experience or the age to deal with a lot of these adult work problems. But something really interesting or strange happened in the workplace where I received a phone call from a colleague one day. And this was a person that I did not work with at all, and I didn't even go to lunch with them. So it was very strange to receive a personal call from them after work. And they basically had a complete meltdown over the call. They were on the brink of tears and just telling me how this work has ruined their relationships, has caused them to lose time with their newborn daughter, and it was just a terrible environment all in all, and the boss was just being really punishing and just disregarding people's welfare. And I was just in shock listening to this person, this much older person, ranting about the office to me. But I knew there and then that they were honestly giving me a huge warning, and it was a big blessing in disguise that they came up to speak to me. And yeah, I quit after my first month.
I feel like I'm in the middle of no fucking where. And I think this is a pretty apt analogy to what I was going through with my career, because I had no clue where the hell I was going with my career at that time. By the time I left my second job, it was clear to me that something was really wrong and that I was in a really bad place, but I did not know why that was the case. So I decided to take some time to just figure things out and try to understand what was going on internally within me that was feeling so chaotic about career. The only problem was that I didn't really figure anything out. All that happened was that I ran out of money and I needed to get a job. My third job is at this place called Fragrance Empire Building. I know, what a name. To be honest, I wasn't thinking about what I needed in a job, what I wanted in a company. All I cared about was that I needed money, and so I just went with whichever job offered me first. Thankfully, I did have a much better time at this company because because I had a manager who really looked out for me. He did take the time to teach me what he knew about marketing. There were also other young people around me, so I wasn't just the only person there. And even the other adults in the office were really nice, and it was just generally a very nice place to work at. But that was also the biggest problem with that experience, because it was okay. It was just okay. And okay is a really dangerous place to be at, because I ended up settling for less. There wasn't a strong reason for me to stay in that company, but there also really wasn't a strong reason for me to leave. And it contributed to the even more lost feelings that I was going through. And by this point, there was no knowing where I was going with this career thing. To be honest, I wasn't planning on leaving this job, but then I received an offer that was really exciting. So I left for my fourth job. I don't have an office to show you for this fourth job because it wasn't in Singapore. It was an overseas position that was just way too exciting to give up, only because it felt like the perfect way out of the shitty situation that I was dealing with in Singapore. I was having a really difficult situation at home where there were just a lot of conflicts, arguments, really big fights, and being able to work overseas was just the perfect escape, away from my parents, away from all of these painful things that I was dealing with in Singapore. Truly, on the surface, it was the perfect escape plan, the perfect way out, but in reality, it was so much worse. Things just didn't work out for that job, and I still find it really difficult to talk about it, but I basically just witnessed firsthand how ugly people can become and how ugly things can become very quickly. At that time, I was still pretty young and very inexperienced, and I didn't know how to deal with the situation in a way that would make me feel safe coming out of it. Just looking inward into myself at that time, it was abundantly clear, if it wasn't clear before. Now it was abundantly clear that something was really, really wrong with my life. Something was really wrong with the way that I was making decisions for myself. I noticed that I was making one self-destructive choice after the other. There was very little love and self-respect that I could carry within me. And that reflected in the really messy and unconventional career choices that I was making. It was just literally a reflection of how messy things were inside of me, in my internal world. So as things were getting more and more difficult at home, I was also getting more and more lost and confused. I had no sense of direction and purpose for my career. And this was 2019, which was a year where we still didn't have words like mental health awareness, therapy, self-help in our everyday vocabulary. So I did not know that I was going through something pretty rough, and I didn't have the words back then to describe what I was feeling. But thankfully, 2020 came around pretty soon, and this was the start of the explosion of the mental health awareness movement. And thankfully, I was able to find the words and the help I needed to unpack what I was going through. It was at this time that I was starting to take my mental health much more seriously. And I was also going deeper into my spirituality and exploring what was within me. 2020 was truly the year that I began to unpack the issues that I was facing at home and to start making life decisions from a place of love and self-respect rather than trauma and self-destruction. So I took a couple of months away from work. I started doing freelance things at that time to support myself. And finally, when I was ready, I went into my fifth job. We are here right now, and our next stop is all the way there, 51 minutes later. My little excursion today is taking me to all sorts of places that I never knew existed in Singapore. But yeah, this is the area where I was working at my fifth job. And by this time, I had committed to taking care of my mental health and really deeply evaluating what I wanted for myself in my career. I didn't have all of the answers, but I started to get an inkling of where my focus area was. And out of all of the marketing skills that I had acquired over the years, I wanted to focus in on my writing skill. Writing just gave me a sense of peace and calm, and I like that. I like to have that in my career. So the most logical step I could take was to go into public relations or corporate communications. And that was where I found my fifth job. I'm really thankful to the people at my fifth company for taking a chance on me, because I didn't come with a conventional corporate communications background. I didn't even study communications. I barely did any of that in my previous jobs. It was a leap of faith for me as well to try out an entirely new industry. While this job at this company was nothing really spectacular, it didn't give me a great sense of purpose or meaning, but I was no longer dependent or even codependent on my company to provide me with that sense of purpose. I was more able to derive it from within, be able to find what makes me want to wake up in the morning each day, what gives me that meaning and that sense of fulfillment without having to rely on a company to give that to me. I was also starting to get embedded into the whole PR ecosystem and the life cycle of being in an agency. I could see a career path. There was a progression. There was a sense of future and direction unfolding in my career, and that was really exciting. That was literally the first time in my entire career that I had ever felt this way. And it was truly liberating, and none of that would have been possible had I not actually started to look within myself and to let go of a lot of self-destructive patterns that were making me run around in loops. And finally, I thought it was time to expand my horizons even more and to go into a larger agency, challenge myself that way. So I left my fifth job after 1 year to go into my sixth job. We are currently at Promenade, and our next stop is to go all the way here to Fort Canning for my sixth job. Oh my god, there's a snake! This is the highway, and here is a snake. I suddenly feel like I'm in Bali, which is so strange, but my last office is literally just down the street. And right here we have this beautiful water fountain situation. I just love it. After job hopping for I think a good first 4 years of my career, I decided that enough was enough, and I'm ready to create a more stable and consistent foundation for myself at the workplace. I stayed at this sixth job for a good 3 years. It was a wonderful agency. I got the chance to work with really amazing people, clients that I would have never thought that I could work with, companies that really gave me a boost to my portfolio. There was a good mix of challenging situations to spur growth, and there were also many wonderful moments just making friends and building really solid relationships at this last company. Even though everything felt super just idyllic almost for a 9-to-5 job, I knew that I was still unsatisfied in many ways, and I had to make a choice to do something either for myself or just stay here and continue. It was just these two options laid out in front of me. It was pretty clear if I thought of it that way. I definitely wanted to move on to do something that I was passionate in. This desire to find out, what I was passionate in, how could I build a career in spirituality and wellness, which I was super passionate about, was the driving force behind my decision to go on the spiritual retreat in July. And when I came back, I was offered a part-time job at the same company, and I couldn't be happier. I was really grateful for the way that everything worked out. But life is life. I was terminated from my part-time work. Basically, the economy was bad, the company was in a good position, and yeah, that was the anticlimactic end to my career. I feel like even though this kind of feels pretty anticlimactic, but in many ways it does make sense, because I was never really planning on entering the 9-to-5. All of my decisions were made out of an emotional place. I was very confused for a long time. So the fact that I was laid off from work is yet another sign from the universe that it's time for me to move on, really do what my soul feels called to do, to follow one's purpose and one's soul calling is honestly really daunting because I have been dealing with the idea of survival for a super long time. And I've always been struggling with surviving month to month, day to day. To follow one's soul calling kind of requires one to let go of this need to control the outcome and to simply surrender to God, the universe, source, however you want to call it. I never thought I would enter this chapter of my life this way. I thought I would be more ready, I would be more secure, financially stable, but in so many ways I have not arrived at that vision. But here I am. I never planned on a specific career in the 9 to 5, and so every time I went into a new job, people would always say that they were taking a chance on me because I didn't have the conventional experience or the degree to back up what I said I could do or what I wanted to do. And now I think it's time for me to take a chance on myself and do something truly worthwhile for me and something that I'm proud of. Thank you for following me along this 8-year journey in my career, visiting all of the various offices. It was such a wonderful trip down memory lane, and I'm so glad that I was able to revisit all of these places and find closure for myself. It's a new chapter, and I would really love for you to join me along on this journey. Do subscribe and follow along, and I'll see you in the next one.